Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Briggs. I am the Client Implementation Manager here at Transfinder. It is my honor to be able to present to you part 2 of our multi-part series today. Just wanted to let everyone know we're going to give about 2 or 3 more minutes to make sure we get in everyone that we can, and we'll get started with the presentation really soon. Thanks so much for your patience, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, everyone. Again, my name is John Briggs. I'm the Client Implementation Manager. Thanks go out to NAPT, National Association for Pupil Transportation, for hosting us today. And speaking of, I'd like to pass the torch on to Mike Martin, who'd like to say a few words from NAPT.
Good afternoon, and thank you, John. We've all seen and read about companies that are stepping outside their normal business to help the national effort. At critical times like these, our leaders are challenged to both address the many medical, economic, and social dimensions of this crisis, and also bolster public cooperation and morale. Our entire industry, the community of school transportation, is stepping up to the plate too. With a majority of school-aged children dependent on their school, not just for education, but for food too, the effort of school systems, their contract service providers, and especially everyone's school bus drivers is contributing to community stability during a time when a food shortage would have a catastrophic consequence for millions of kids. There are so many heartwarming stories from all corners of the country. It's really amazing to see that part of the news each day. When this chapter in our history is written about the nightmare of COVID-19, we hope it recognizes this unsung role of school bus drivers and others who are taking these risks to serve their communities. Recall after Hurricane Katrina, school buses were shown repeatedly on the news stranded in flooded parking lots when they could have been used to rescue stranded citizens. Fortunately, policymakers, emergency managers, and even school transportation professionals themselves learned from that experience. Today, the images are very different. Extraordinary circumstances call for extraordinary efforts, and school bus professionals are proud to be supporting the national mobilization. It's who we are, a community of compassionate, dedicated professionals who care about kids, care about each other, care about our communities, and care about America. I'm really proud of all of you. Thank you for the long hours and dedication to the task of helping our nation get through a very difficult time. I hope you enjoy the webinar today, and I hope you learned something from it. It is now my pleasure to turn the microphone over to my friend, Tony Civitella.
Thank you, Mike. I wish I could be really close to you to actually literally pass the microphone, right? It'd be great to do that, but thank you so much. Hello, everybody. And again, Mike, thank you so much for partnering with us here at Transfinder to provide these best practices webinars, really the entire transportation industry. And it's exciting to be part of this. And this is our second webinar and series. And hey, we're all seeing these great stories, and I agree with you on how these schools are really stepping up in their communities. And as you mentioned, how they're delivering foods in different ways. And they're also even delivering technology, laptops, tablets. You've heard about these hotspots that even there's buses have a hotspot and actually are in front of parents in these homes. How about these parades? I love seeing these things on social media that obviously the neighborhoods, these are parades that teachers want to let them know that, hey, we miss you. And then of course with the students with their we miss you too, that kind of thing. Just really, I mean, it's crazy that this pandemic has brought us closer together. Even while we're practicing the social distancing, we've actually come together and we're all stepping up. And we saw this, another horrible moment in the country's time. It was 9/11. I remember just going around a neighborhood that we all had our American flags there. I mean, we all had our flags hanging. It was just this, we all came together. And I just want to, I feel that, and it's great. I know we're all going to get through this, but I feel like we're all going to get through this in a much better way. We're going to be stronger. And I want to give you a little thing what I've been doing. I've every single night been sending an email to the entire company and really highlighting what everyone's doing, what each team. It just really is important that given this moment, we want to continue to communicate. And I asked one of my emails a couple of nights ago, and they're usually really late at night. It's meant for the recap of the day, but I don't think anyone's reading them close to midnight. They're all reading the day, the day after. But one of those things, I had this rhetorical question about, you guys all heard about it. If a tree falls in the wood, does it make any sound, right? It's like a crazy question to ask. Well, at least to me, it doesn't really matter. If no one's there to know about it, it doesn't matter if it makes any sounds. So really my point is that all these stories, we want to make sure they're being heard all throughout North America. And that's really where a lot of our clients, and some they're not our clients either, they're all sharing. It's all good to hear. We all want to share these best practices, and I love that. And we're so proud and honored to really be part of this and to share these stories. And if, I'm sure it'll be talked about, send emails at mystory@transfinder.com, because we love to share this. And it's really about everyone. It doesn't just be not just our Transfinder clients, but everyone. It's really the entire community, because we want to hear from you and we want to share this stuff. And honestly, as we talk to more people every day, they want to hear it. And I was that kid in class that I always raised my hand. My parents really, I ask questions all the time, and I still do. I ask questions, but most people don't ask questions. They have the questions, they don't ask questions. So just because someone is not asking a question doesn't mean they don't have any. They're saying, oh, Tony will ask that question. And of course, whenever I did that, everyone would say, well, thanks, Tony. I had the same question. I just didn't really I thought it was going to be one of those stupid questions, which I don't believe there's any. So I just want to let you know, we want to hear all those questions, everything. We want to hear questions. We want to hear solutions, whatever makes sense. So it's exciting. Again, thank you for the opportunity that we've given. So now I want to pass the microphone. Well, I don't know what side you are, up, down. I feel like it's right. The Brady Bunch, right?
Oh,
and,
we're here. Okay.
Now, Rick,
Got it.
thank you again.
Thank you so much, Tony. And again, thank you so much, NAPT, for this platform. We just want to welcome everybody again to our second Best Practices webinar. My name is Rick DeRico. I'm the Director of Public Relations at Transfinder. And just a little warning, I used to be a reporter for actually 27 years. And some of that time I was an education reporter. And I was always on the hunt for stories. And we have just been coming across so many of these good stories that have already been alluded to today. And so, actually, John, are you there still? with me? I'm just realizing I'm going to go through my thing, but we're going to turn it back over to you, John, to go over your slide deck, and then we'll bring in our panelists. But I just want to tell you that we have been collecting so many stories, and our goal, and this is, yes, we're with Transfinder, but we're collecting stories from all types of districts that use all types of vendors. Because, and I'm not going to sing the High School Musical song. Maybe Julie could sing it with me if we do it together, but we're all in this together, and it's true. We are all in this together, and so we are trying to really literally collect the best practices that are happening in North America and how districts and transportation offices specifically are serving their communities. I'm going to name the panelists now. This happens to be Transfinder's very first client. They're in our backyard, and Tony always says, you really, that first client, if they're in your backyard, you're going to bump into them, not so much these days, but you're going to bump into them in the grocery store and when you're out and about, so you really got to get it right. And so Schenectady has been with us for 30 years. And so joining us on the panel, again, after John goes through some of his slides, is going to be Taryn Breen. She's the Assistant School Business Official with Schenectady. Elaine Reynolds, she's the Food Service Manager. And Al Velkovic, Transportation Supervisor. Al, did I get that right this time?
Velkovic.
So I'm going to turn it back over to John, who's going to go over his slides, and then we're going to get into this panel discussion of how Schenectady has served this city school food and technology. John.
I'm here. Thank you so much, Rick, Tony, and Mike. Let's get to it. A few pieces of housekeeping before we get started. You hear our voices, we don't hear yours, unfortunately. That doesn't mean that you can't communicate with us, however. We do have a handful of moderators, Julie Ader, Andrew Hamilton, that are on the call today. So you have a questions panel in GoToWebinar. Please, whether it's now, 5 minutes from now, anytime during or after the presentation, send us questions or stories that you want to share, and we'll be sure to bring them up to the group, try and answer as many as possible or allude to as many as possible. And again, mystory@transfinder.com is where you can send emails. But let's get to it. This is a Swiss Army knife. It has a lot of different functions, and depending on the situation you're in, you may need to use a different part of that Swiss Army knife. This is what we're seeing with our school transportation officials as well. Stories are continuing to pour in across the globe that are highlighting how people are adapting to these changes and how people are pivoting to make the best of the COVID-19 situation. And what does this mean? It means vehicles and staff are being utilized in new ways. I have a few stories. I'm sure Schenectady is going to have a few stories for us as well. But 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago, a month ago, we never thought that we'd be dealing with buses being Wi-Fi hotspots or delivering Chromebooks to students. It just wasn't in the realm of possibility. However, in that short time frame, everyone has changed and everyone has made that happen, which I think is awesome. So thank you from us here at Transfinder, and I'm sure on behalf of the NAPT, we really appreciate everything that you're doing for the students and their families. You're amazing. Here is the agenda for today. I have a couple stories I want to share based on client conversations that I've had in correspondence, so I'm excited to go through those. We're going to talk about taking an inventory of your technology, what this actually means, and what you already have at the district or your operation that could already be helping you out. And then it's time for Rick and the Schenectady discussion panel. They'll give you insight into how they are taking a dynamic approach to assisting students and families in the Schenectady area. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some Q&A. It's always helpful to bring this up, but we want to reinforce this over and over again. There is no such thing as over communication in these times, whether it's with your parents and your students, whether it's with your own staff members, whether it's with the community. Be frequent and be direct. Get out ahead of any misinformation and make sure everyone clearly understands what you're doing and how you're getting it done. All right, so let's talk about some stories. The first story I wanted to bring up is Floresville ISD. You can see that they are located in Texas. They're using our StopFinder communication tool in a very unique way. So the first thing I'll mention, many of you heard, we're offering StopFinder communication from Transfinder for free to any clients across North America for the duration of this school year. Whether it's StopFinder communication or any other system that you have in place, typically what happens is you send out a message and originate that district, and it gets sent out to parents. But Floresville is actually taking a little different stance and doing things a little bit differently. What they've done actually is they are planning on, if they already haven't done it, adding their staff and their staff information to our StopFinder communication tool. So not only are push notifications being sent out to parents and students, letting them know about updates, but they're also able to send at the district targeted messages to their employees to let them know about shifting responsibilities or changes in their daily schedule. So keeping up to date your staff is just as important as making sure that the community at large knows. So your staff members are there for you when you need them. Let's talk about something else as well. Let's talk about Maple School District. They are located in the lovely district of Wisconsin, or lovely state, I should say, of Wisconsin. So what they did is they set up schools where parents could go and pick up supplies, notebooks, pens, paper, calculators, all of that good stuff. When it came to the end of the day, there were about 200 students that were not able to go and get their supplies. Whether it was parents were at work, there's no mode of transportation, there were a lot of different reasons behind this. So here's what they did. They worked with one of my colleagues and they created bus trips, about 5 of them, that serviced the 200 kids and their families that were not able to get those school supplies. So they broke up the map into quadrants and they were able to create those trips to service all of those students. So again, we're making the best of the situation. You can't come to the school will come to you. Maple School District, thank you very much for stepping up. And same for Floresville ISD, taking a new approach. We've heard this across the board. Tony Civitella has said this a lot, and I've heard it from a lot of you out there. This isn't business as usual, and business still needs to get done, and you're getting it done. So thank you. So do you have a story? Again, my story at transfinder.com. It doesn't matter if you're one of our clients, if you worked with us in the past and you're using another system or vendor. We just want to hear and gather as much insight as possible as to how school districts are working in these ever-changing times. So my story at transfinder.com, we're going to give you a little bit of a reminder towards the end of today as well. Inventorying your software. Now, if you have a little bit more free time, because you're not dealing with the regular pickups and drop-offs on a regular basis, let's talk about business process review. So I'll give you an example here. What problems or what issues have you been trying to solve at your district, and what do you have at your disposal right now to get those things done? If you ever have questions, if you work with Transfinder about what you have available to you, feel free to always give our support staff a call or your account executive to see what products you have and what they can do for you in your district. So identifying what you want to improve and what you have available to make those improvements, whether it's us at Transfinder or another vendor. What about long-standing data issues? Maybe in your routing software, routing solution, you haven't imported students for 3 years. So the students, some of the students that you have in Route Finder Pro or your other system, they've graduated. They're in college, they're in the military, they have families already. So maybe what we need to do is get a fresh set of data into your routing solution. So longstanding data issues, keeping up with certifications with your vehicles and inspections, making sure that all of that is available if the state comes in, really taking inventory of what you have again and making sure that you can get what you need to get done. Maybe you have a solution in place, but you're not using it. If you were here for part one, we talked about Transfinder clients that had the InfoFinder I program. It's a public-facing website where someone can type in an address and it tells them what school boundary they fall within or what stop they fall within. This is something we've been hearing from a lot of clients. Maybe they were using this 1 or 2 times a week, but now a lot of clients are starting to utilize InfoFinder I and update it on a daily basis. They're pushing out new stops for meal delivery, for school device delivery, or school supply delivery. They're pushing out that information at least once a day, and so they have a need now to go to this software and use this program that they were using maybe once or twice a week prior. So maybe you can take this approach as well. Identify what you have, what it can do, and maybe start looking into some of those more underutilized features or programs that you already have at your disposal. And then finally, staff and technology. Who's using the products or the solutions that you have at the district? Do you have a handful of proficient users that you rely on for a regular basis? Maybe you need to expand that group out. If there's a little bit of downtime, we can get some more folks trained on Route Finder Pro or InfoFinder I or any other products or solutions you may have. So staff and technology is going to be important. Let's talk about proficient users too. Maybe the way that they're using the solution needs to change. Maybe someone whose focus primarily was just on geocoding and making sure the kids were located in the right spot. Maybe now their focus needs to shift to creating those meal delivery trips. So their responsibilities may change and they may need some uptraining on how to get that done. So again, four points, but 4 things to take a look at what you already have. And again, if you have questions from a Transfinder perspective, feel free to contact support or your account executive to get more details on what you already have. All right. It is that time that everyone's been waiting for. We have our discussion panel featuring Rick, Taryn, Elaine, and Al. Rick, take it away.
Thanks so much, John. That was excellent. And just a reminder, StopFinder is actually free for all school districts in North America. You don't have to have Transfinder's routing solutions to be able to utilize it. And you can learn more information at stopfinder.com. We really wanted to make that available to every single school district to help with their communication needs. So thank you so much to our panelists again. I'm so glad to have Elaine, Taryn, and Al here. Your story is inspiring, so I just really want to jump right into it. I know that you guys, this is a conversation. We have Al on screen, and then we have Elaine and Taryn on online. So just have a nice, lively conversation. Taryn, I wanted you to start off and just kind of set the table so people understand a little bit about Schenectady City Schools, a little bit about the size of the district and some details about your community.
Absolutely, thank you. We are a small urban district located just outside of Albany, New York. We are one of the larger districts in the capital region, though. We service about 10,000 students. We do have 17 buildings. We have 11 elementary schools, 3 middle schools. We have our high school, which has 2 satellite campuses. We also have a learning center, and our Washington Irving is our adult education center as well. So we're very large. We got a lot of students who have food insecurities. It's a low-income area. We're 100% free breakfast and lunch, but we also have participated in what's called the Weekend Backpack Program, which is along with the Schenectady Foundation and the City Mission. We have about 1,000 students who on every Friday receive a bag of food to take home for their families for the weekend. It includes non-perishables, but it also includes an egg and a milk card, which allows them to get those items from a local store up here, Stewart's, which is a little local convenience store up here, to help us out with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Just quickly, how long have you been delivering food now in light of the coronavirus situation?
We've been delivering, we had it set up, and we're going to get more into this, but we had the sites set up the first week, and then the second week we did delivery out. And so we're moving on to our third week of delivery, more or less.
Third week. And then, you had told me a little bit about how you guys kicked it off. So kind of, again, we have a lot of people who are in school transportation, some that are maybe in the middle of doing the food deliveries right now, who are just here to glean some more tips that they can learn from. And then there's probably some that haven't even started yet. So how did you guys kick it off? Where did that beginning, give me a sense of the beginning there.
When we started to realize that this might be a reality, we were tasked by our district leadership team to kind of come up with a plan. So Elaine, our food service manager, had started to work on the plan, and we'd come up with the idea of having three places throughout the district where people could come and get their food. One of the things that we didn't realize as we were coming up with our plan was that we only had a day before it was actually implemented. So we used what we could use. We used that plan at first, and then we decided to modify it so we could get more students fed.
So I'll piggyback on what Taryn just said. This is Elaine.
Hey, Elaine.
So when we were tasked by our district leadership team, I met with our food service management company general manager, and we collaborated on how we could feed our students. We have 10,000, like Taryn said, and we looked at our district lines, and we came up with 3 centrally located sites that we felt that our students could get to. Our population doesn't necessarily drive, so they rely a lot on public transportation or friends. So we needed to make it convenient for them to get to. So like Taryn said, we had to implement within a day of finalizing this. So once we came up with the 3 sites, we actually met with Al and kind of came up with how we were going to, get the food to the 3 schools, which wound up being using our buses and our bus companies. And we came up with a plan on how to load them in the morning from our central building at the high school and get them out to the schools.
So Al, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So Al, so you got your marching orders, 3 locations. What did you do from that point when it was handed off to you?
With the amount of locations that we had, it was pretty simple at that point. We've got great vendors that we work with. The first thing that I did is I held a group meeting with all of our vendors, brought them in to, if you will, like a war room, and we discussed the process of what we were looking to do. But we did one thing even more, is we looked at the current situation and said we can do the 3 schools and how we would do them. But then we also started to think about how could we expand the program. And then once that first set of marching orders was there, when we were servicing the schools, and then Taryn and the group, were giving us the information about the amount of meals that we had, then we started to have additional meetings, which led to a development process, which got us thinking a little bit more and outside the box, and it started to grow, and then it took off.
I want to give the numbers are pretty staggering how far you've grown. I know you guys are not satisfied until you reach every student, but I'm really impressed with where you've gone. Just tell me, anybody can answer this, but you first week, day 1, you served how many? And how many are you serving, as of today? How many would you say you serve on one given day?
We started off with serving on day 1, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Elaine, We started out with 200 meals for the first day, and then as of this past Friday, we've grown all the way to 2,500 meals.
That's amazing. That's a pretty staggering growth. And I want to get into the details of that because what you have done and how you've adjusted has been, I think, amazing. Elaine, just to kind of give us a sense of what it is that's on these buses, can you just tell us on the food service side, you know, what are these, what's contained in these meals? Is it, and it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's breakfast and lunch. Can you just kind of give a sense of what it is you're delivering? Elaine, are you there? Taryn?
We are delivering. Until Elaine comes back on, I will chime in. Are you there, Elaine?
Yep.
Go
So
ahead.
we are following the New York State Ed Summer Food Service Program meal pattern. So it's very similar to our normal meal pattern for breakfast and lunch. So we offer all the components in a unitized meal.
So give me like a sense, like I like
Sure.
food, but Tony likes food too. So like, give me, what is the meal? Is it a, you know, it's not meals ready to eat, right? It's not MRE.
Breakfast is a bagel, cream cheese, a milk, a piece of fruit or juice. It could be a cereal and milk. It changes daily. Lunch is typically a sandwich of some sorts. Monday, for production purposes, we make it easy and do a peanut butter and jelly or a alternate for those who need it due to allergies. The other days are typically a turkey sandwich, fruit, vegetable, milk, juice. So it's pretty self-sufficient and simple.
That sounds great. So Elle, Taryn, either one of you guys or both of you, give me a sense of how you made that switch. So how long did you stay with the 3-location approach and then moved into the much more complex process of delivering the food?
We had actually come up with the plan to distribute food. Al, and poor Al, I dragged him into my office and made him come up with this great plan to deliver food, but we had already sent out communication saying we were going to do the sites. So we had to put that on hold. And we did the sites for the first week so that to get some continuity going. And then we put all the notification out starting on the Wednesday. That beginning Monday, there would be the routes with the different stops, and that buses would also be available at each building from a certain time period.
Elle, anything to add on that?
She's giving me too much credit. It was actually a lot of what Taryn was doing behind the scenes. And what actually occurred is Taryn was partnering with me on trying to see how we could get as many meals out to our students as possible. And what I did, and this is the part that I have a takeaway and something that I'll discuss a little bit later, is when Taryn was trying to do that, I kind of saw her vision, but didn't have a lot of her input. So what I did is I went through and I said, how can we effectively get these meals out to all of our students and as fast as we can? So the first thing that I thought was bus routes. And I put a plan together to look at our curb to curb, our regular ed students, and put that plan in place. And then I kind of fed it to Taryn to say, hey, look, this is what we've got. Can you give me the green light? And she was kind of like trying to pause me a little bit, which is good. And I wanted to get that out, but we ended up stopping that for just a minute and thought about that process to figure out, hey, let's meet first. Let's discuss what those next steps should be and do it as a group. So we had the original plan from the district. Then we kind of had what I threw together with my assistant group team and our vendors. And then what we did is we got into Taryn's office and we said, how do we make all of this work together? How does this come together to service all the students and efficiently? And then that's where it started to take off through a couple of meetings. Taryn had kind of challenged me, which was outside the box, and some things that we had talked about was she wanted not just to get the folks that were being bused, but she wanted to get our walkers as well. And she wanted to ensure that, hey, if they didn't get those meals, then what would step 2 be? So we started to plan all around that. And then the final product, which we'll discuss a little bit, came out. And I think right now We're almost there, but I think if we need to expand and continue growth, we also have that option.
You know, as you're talking, you made me think about a question. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be touching myself. I'm told I do that a lot. Tell me about, how often do you meet? Do you have regular meetings just to kind of, you know, brainstorm still, and even just kind of, you know, review where you're at?
With being dispatched, we're out of buildings. We're working out of home now. So we've been doing a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, and texting back and forth. It's made it a little bit more of a challenge, but it's also allowed us to think of things a little bit more on the fly. I heard you had said that the Wisconsin, I think it was the Wisconsin school district divided it up into quarters. What we did is we took our city and basically looked at it like attendance zones. We broke it up based upon all the elementary schools and then overlapped the middle school and the high school on top of it. So instead of having a different run for the middle school and a different run for the high school, Al called you guys and got this amazing map with a lot of dots, blue ones apparently. And
John, should we put these up? I mean, Al, should we put these up now? Would this be a good time?
You know what, if you want, we can walk through this right now. If you want to put up the first map, we can do that.
go for it.
That'd be the large map of the population of Schenectady with all of our students. So it's actually that map right there. So
Okay, go ahead.
What the process was, and we met 2 or 3 times within that week before we had our final product. And what we did is we knew that Taryn and I and Elaine weren't the only ones that could make this work, that we had to partner in the transportation assistants, Nicole Slabinski. We also had to get Transfinder involved. And we had to see, and everybody had to open up their minds and say, what can we do here? So the first thing that we started to think about was, and we partnered in our client manager, Justin Bissonette, who's absolutely fantastic partner. He ends up taking this map as we're talking, and he gives us a map with all of our students as blue dots without having any routes. So what you're looking at right here is the population of Schenectady City School District for walkers, riders, curb-to-curb students, everybody that's in our system, and what that looks like as a makeup. So once Justin was able to
because you wouldn't have had walkers on there, right? So that's new. This is a brand new map. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. So what Schenectady does is that, and we've done it ever since I've been here, before I've gotten here, is every student, regardless walker or not, you're put inside the Transfinder database. So when this first got talked about, we knew that we had a winner. So the first thing is getting with Justin. He does the copy to the map. He removes all the routes, and we get to look at our skeleton. Then once we look at that, we get in Nicole, who's very knowledgeable about Schenectady City School District and the layout. And she took this map and she built 15 routes out of this map that would include exactly what Taryn was talking about. So what we did is, if the first knee-jerk reaction was say, let's do this by like an elementary school, or let's do this by a middle school. But the thinking out of our last meeting was, let's do this by group or by area. So this way, if we had one bus, they could service multiple customers, the customer being the student. So you had elementary, middle, and then high school. One bus would go to 4 or 5 stops. They'll have a couple hundred meals on that route. And as they go through, any student from pre-K all the way up to 12th grade can go to that bus and get that meal. So then what Nicole did is she looked at this map and she built it from left to right, as you're looking at it right now, and started to piece it together. And the one thing that she did is she made it more efficient for us, because normally within Schenectady City School District with this many kids, we do about 350 routes a day. So that's AM and PM, plus we have additional out-of-district stuff that we do. So what Nicole did is she took 15 buses and she covered this whole area to cover all 10,000, or to service 10,000 students, which is absolutely huge. So if you look at the map, if you could show the next map, which will show what we've done. These are the routes that were built based off of Nicole's knowledge and where the students were located. So if the color was a little bit more crisper, you guys would be able to see that if we were to overlay this on top of that large map, we would be hitting every area that's on that map and servicing all the students. And this is what allowed us to go from 200 to 2,500. And I think we're still in the learning stages of all of this and still getting the knowledge out. And I still think a lot of people are cautious about going out of their houses. I think this number is going to grow and continue to grow. So this is just a start for us. The next thing that happened, though, was when we went back and had another meeting with Taryn, her team challenged us on how do we do the curb-to-curb kids? How would we make that work with what we have as a map? So what Justin Bissonette did is he took the Transfinder system, he built another copy of our map for us just with our curb-to-curb students. And then we took this routing map that you see in front of you and we overlaid it on top to make it look to see if we were hitting all the locations in that area. And guess what? We nailed it.
No, I think we have that too, don't we?
Yeah, if you look at the next map.
And so this is special education included here.
Correct. This is about 18 to 1,900 students that we have in our curb-to-curb special ed group. So what we did is we took that previous slide, which was all the routes that she built, and we overlaid it. We can actually do this with Transfinder. So if you guys ever want to do this, you can take this population of special ed students or curb-to-curbs, and then you can take a previous routing map like Justin did, and you can overlay them, and you will see that they both match. It actually covers perfectly. So,
yeah,
go ahead.
No, I just remember when we talked about it, you were so excited, even just describing it to me, the eureka moment when you saw the maps overlay each other.
Absolutely. So what Justin did is he pulled this map up first, and then he went up and used some cosmetic layers and some other tricks that he only knows, and I wish I knew them. And he made the map outlay right in front of me. All the routes just appeared right in front of me over these blue dots. And I was amazed. And that's another takeaway that I got from this is the partnership between Transfinder and Schenectady continues to grow. The more we continue to do better, I'm picking their brains and they're challenging me and we're doing the same. And I think our next step, if we need to for long term, if we want to do the curb to curb next or go to that, if there's other things that we want to do to go above and beyond, I think we're ready to do that. So we're in a good place right now to continue to grow.
Oh, I'm sorry, Al, I didn't mean to cut you off a little bit there. I just wanted to, one of the things that I think is very important though is that we note our structure of those deliveries are done in the morning, starting at, I believe, like 9 o'clock. They leave. Al came up with and Elaine worked together. They came up with when the buses would get there, load them up. They'd get out at 9 a.m. and they would go make their deliveries. And then at 11 o'clock, we shipped a bus to every one of our schools, with the exception of those 2 high school satellite buildings. So starting from 11 to 1 o'clock on the buses, they're in every building. We have a bus in the parking lot where they can also get their food. And it does not matter.
Their stop.
Yeah,
right?
So that, if they're closer to school than they are to a stop. So the school buildings also acted as a stop, more or less. And we did not put limitations at all as far as where students could get their lunches. Any student from Schenectady can go to any stop, can go to any building and ask for their food.
So that's awesome. Elaine, you're involved right in the when a bus may be starting to run low. Is that correct? That you're involved in your team helps shuttle more food to the various buses. Is that correct? Al, is that how that works?
Yeah, so when they're getting low, we've provided in each bag of food a number to our central kitchen for them to call. So that way we can have food brought over to them just to keep food in the correct temperature zone. So we're not, serving food that's not safe to our kids. So within 10 minutes, we can get food over to a bus and have it restocked.
That's great. So I just think that that whole process is so fully covered, from the routes to the schools, and then the replenishment of the buses, if there's ever any. There seems to be a lot of moving parts, a lot of need for communication, I'm sure. But you got now, Al, I wanted you to share a little bit. You were on the first delivery. It was important for you to be on that first bus that went out. Tell me about that experience and even just how you felt in this kind of new environment.
Sure. One, it was, to be honest, it was a little scary, right? You're thinking about what's going on out there, but I think the first thing that hit me was just rewarding. Working my whole life in the private sector and then coming to the public sector and servicing the students and our parents that are in the area. And when we have a time of need, and this is not just picking their students up, bringing them to and from school, but an additional level, and you're part of that. It's very rewarding when you see the smile on that student's face, knowing that they're going to get food, and that the parent is assured as well. So when we hit that first stop, and the second stop and the third stop, on the first day it was a little slow, getting the word out, handing out those flyers, and just making sure that we were sharing information, but also trying to make sure that we were using the guidelines that were there from a safety perspective. It was the most rewarding experience that I've had, and that's exactly something that I passed off to my leadership team as well.
That's awesome. I mean, it's got, go ahead, Elaine.
Oh, actually, it's Taryn. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on that. Just so you know, we have the bus drivers, a bus aide, and we have 2 employees of the district on each bus, which has also been so essential for some of our students. They look forward to seeing a familiar face so they know care about them. Because, I mean, sadly, the reality is that some of the kids are left alone a little bit longer than they probably should be. They're uncertain about what their day is going to be in and out. We have a lot of students with trauma. So there's just a lot, our students deal with a lot. And to see people that they know love them and care about them on a daily basis is also essential.
That is awesome. I'm an emotional person. I'm going to try not to, I didn't think I was going to cry on camera, so I'm going to try to keep it. But that is moving because you guys are doing more than just delivering food. You're showing them that you care, you love them, you miss them. So it's pretty moving. I know I just texted to find out if we have questions, and we do. So I'm going to just ask a couple of quick things. Al, there is technology component to this too. So I do want to touch on that because there probably are people watching this that are like, well, we're delivering, Chromebooks or laptops or hotspots or whatever. So that's not, you're not using the same plan in that case. You got another plan for that, for this.
Yeah, and it's another partnership, right? So now the transportation team is partnered with our technology group in order to ensure that our students are getting online training and that they have the tools to be successful with their online. So what's happened is our director for technology is partnering with one of our assistants in transportation, which is Nicole, pretty much on a daily basis. I'm kind of overseeing it just to make sure things are smooth, but those two are working right through this. And what's happening is they're getting a list of students every day, and they're going through, and there's a team of people that are making calls out to those students and also to the parents to say, hey, look, tomorrow we're going to be at X, Y, and Z locations, and we're going to be there at this time, and this time. And then what they're doing is they're setting them up. So, for example, it would come to Mount Pleasant Middle School. They'll do the pickup of all of the technology, and then we'll have 2 or 3 buses that are supplied by our vendors with some assistance. And then we'll have our staff get on those buses, and then they'll go to those locations and they'll hand those devices out to the students and the parents. And then the whole cycle starts all over again. So it's been very successful. Our technology team is a great partner in this, and Nicole has been fantastic as well. So things are going very well right now.
That's awesome. Taryn, could you share, and then I'm going to ask you for one last question on the lessons learned or takeaway. But before we do that, and then we'll go to the questions, tell me about the end of the day. So, these buses have been heavily utilized now, and obviously in this environment, want these buses to be clean, squeaky clean for the next day. Tell me a little bit about how you wrap up each day.
Each day, obviously, they return to the high school to remove any product that was left over. And then the district had purchased for each of our bus companies a disinfecting gun where it's like, it's kind of funny because when you watch it used, the people who use it actually kind of have a little bit of fun because they're like, shooting this mist all over everything. And, it's got these tablets it puts in, and it within 3 or 4 hours, I believe, will disinfect an area completely. It's no scrubbing involved. It's just a mist. So every night these buses are misted down, but also during the delivery phase, we have gloves, we do have wipes, and sanitizer type stuff on the bus as well, just to keep everybody safe while the delivery is happening.
Great. Actually, I should ask Elaine, I mean, when you're loading up the buses, I think you have a team of people that are involved in loading up. You're, again, just as Taryn was mentioning, you have a whole process to make sure you're properly handling the food in this environment. Elaine?
She takes a minute sometimes with her mute button, but
Okay.
she pops in. I'll let her finish it off here. We do. We have a system where, and Al actually he's witnessed it happen. It's apparently it's impressive.
Yeah,
Al, do you want to share it?
No, what I was going to add on was the actual names of the disinfectant and the gun that we actually use to share with the group, and that there's an actual process about the disinfectant. So the gun is actually called a Protexus sprayer. It's Protexus, and it's a gun with a little water holder device in the bottom. You would disconnect it. You would throw a couple of these tablets in it, which are called pure tabs. And you'll throw 3 of those tabs into the mix of water. And then what they do at the end of every day is they go to the end of the bus when it's clean, and they charge this gun up, which is electronic, and they spray from the back of the bus everything that could have been contaminated all the way to the front, close the door, and it sits overnight. That bus is then disinfected. So when we start the next day and we have the driver and the monitor get on there, we should be 100% disinfected. And then what they do is they'll grab the gloves, and then they'll get their wipes, and then they'll continue on their run. So we've even went one step farther with this as well. We've actually developed a 4-step process for Schenectady, and the guidelines are pretty basic, and I wrote them down. It's a routine disinfectant process before we close, and how to do that. Then there's an increased exposure disinfectant process. There's a shutdown stage process, and then there's also a reopen stage process, all using these products, and we can share that information as well.
That's awesome. We'll have that. I should mention that that Elaine has also given me a lot of documents on the food side of things, and we will have all that on our best practices page that you can find. That best practices page is actually anchored on our homepage, transfinder.com. Okay, Julie has some questions. I'm going to ask Julie for a first question, and then we'll come back around at the very end. Julie, question number 1.
Question number 1 is from a caller in Ohio. Alicia wanted to know, how are the meals distributed to large amounts of students without creating congregation?
Al, you want to take that?
That is a very good question. And what we have done is the bus will take some of the platforms that are inside the bus, and they'll put them outside the bus as like a step. They'll distribute the food onto that step. The student will come up one at a time, grab that, move, and then they'll replenish the step, and then the next student comes up. Therefore, there's not a congregation, if you will. It's a line, and it just gets serviced one person at a time.
We also made sure we had enough stops that there wouldn't be the large crowds, and they're there for 15 minutes. And people are actually very good with, we put a lot of information out. We're saying, please don't congregate, reminder of the 6 feet. And we've empowered the people on the bus to say, can you please take a step back, and monitor that as well.
Excellent. Excellent. Julie, question number 2.
Do you have to train the drivers in handling food versus students? From our friend Peter.
Would that be a Elaine or Taryn question, or is that any one of you?
Well, as far as They actually, the feedback I've gotten is that the drivers and the aides are doing an awesome job. They've actually come up with, a lot of them have come up with the systems of how best to implement, because they are used to the stop and move and that type of a thing. So we really didn't have that much training involved. It wasn't necessary. And when people have questions, our favorite word is fluid. Everything we're doing right now is fluid, and we're making the changes as we need to.
Taryn, I'm glad you snuck that word in. We talked about that and earlier in advance of our call, and I'm like, that's the key about being very fluid. We talk about it at Transfinder, being nimble. So very good. Julie, question number 3.
I think Al touched on this. I will ask it again though, because it's I might want a better understanding of it too, in addition to Kathy. Listen to Lisa. How exactly are you serving the meals? Tables directly from the back of the bus?
No, so what's happening is the bus is being loaded from the side door, and then all of the meals are placed on the seats. And then what's happening is you have your driver and your monitor, and then you'll have an assistant there in the aisle as well. So what's happening is there are crates that are on the bus. So what they're doing is they're taking the crates, and they're taking the crate and they're setting it outside of the bus by the sidewalk. And then what they'll do is, as a student approaches, they'll have their gloves on, they'll have the disinfectant wipes, they'll lay the meal or set the meal on top of the crate. The student approaches, grabs it, and then moves on, and then the next student, and that just continues forward.
Very good. Julie, you got a final one for us?
I do. Have the buses been modified to accommodate the food and our technology? Have you removed seats? Have you done anything to the interior?
Great question.
No, nothing at all. In fact, the way that Elaine has this set up, which is fantastic, we're not just packing the buses full of food. We're doing 100 meals, which only takes up a couple of seats at that time. They're put in by breakfast and lunch, and then if there's backpacks, it would go into another location. And then all they would do is as the students are coming up, like I said, we'll use that process to distribute them.
Rick, I just heard from Elaine. She said actually that she has tried to unmute, but she believes she's muted. Perhaps, I don't know if one of the hosts or one of the people organizing it has somehow managed to mute her as well, but she has been trying to unmute.
Yeah, Taryn, it actually says she's self-muted, and I've tried to unmute her and I can't, so I don't know what's going on there.
All right, she's getting an opposite message, but she's there.
Well, I want to go to final takeaways. Thank you very much, Julie. That was awesome. Let's go to our final takeaways, and I'll end with Elaine, so maybe we can figure out the unmuting situation there. But let's just start with Taryn, and I'll go to Al, and then Elaine can close us out, and I'll give some final words.
For me, final takeaways are just that I think this is new for everybody. This is something that nobody's really experienced before, and we are so fortunate that Al, Elaine, and I we work together really well, and just to be patient with each other and understand that it's going to take time to get it perfected. We're hoping it doesn't have to be much longer, but we're prepared for it to be longer if we need to.
Great. Al?
There's a couple of them. One of them is, and from my perspective, when something like this happens, you just want to jump right in and you want to fix it. And you can't do that. You've got to be patient. You've got to make sure that you partner in the right people. You've got to think outside the box. You've got to take, even though that you think because you're a transportation professional, you've got to get with those business partners that you have, whether it's a business professional or it's a food service professional or a vendor, and get their input before you bake your final product. It's worth it. It'll save you a lot of time. And like me, what happened with me is I wanted to make sure that we got those meals out as soon as possible, and I started a half-baked product to begin with. Once that got paused, we were able to look at it from a bigger piece with a team perspective, and then the partnership with Transfinder was invaluable. When I was able to look at all of our students, whether they walked, whether they rode a bus, or whether they were curb to curb. And for our client manager, Justin, to be able to pull these maps up to help me and guide us to how to route them, it's huge. So I would just say is you step back and then take a look at this. Be patient, be a team player, and be open-minded.
That's awesome. Elaine, are you there? I know you're there. I'm not sure if you're able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Final takeaway.
I think it's just a lot of what Taryn and Al said already, you know, knowing who your partners are in your world and who can make things happen. You need to be very fluid and open-minded about how you solve a problem. I don't think it's anything any of us have had to do before. And almost kind of thinking like what could happen next and being prepared for that, you know. We knew we were going to transition to a plan B, but you know, right now for us, we're also thinking about, you know, this could go on a little longer than we all thought. So how do we kind of get to that next step for our students? So.
Well, you guys have really, to me, and I think for everybody watching and hearing, a real team approach. I mean, these are 3 different departments working hand in glove, and communication. We talked about family yesterday, and you know, sometimes you know, just learning how to communicate with each other. But you guys have definitely been, I think, really an inspiration. Thank you so much. I wanted to just give you guys a hand. Thank you so much for being on our being a part of this very important panel discussion. Tony, do you have a few minutes? Do you have a few words to say here, and then I'll close us out with some next steps.
Well, you know, I'm going to be quick because I know we want to be sensitive on the time. But you know, in the recent times, when we see a military personnel, it's our duty as American. We always thank them for their service, right? Now, of course, with all the events, the first responders, all the doctors and all the emergency personnel, right? All the police officers, right? These are first responders, but I feel like these are other personnel that we want to thank, but of all the millions of kids that you're really providing food. And I got to tell you, it is a touchy thing. And, you know, you're not, you know, from today, you were in that, thank you for your service. And I want to be the first one to say to you, thank you for your service. And again, Schenectady, we love you guys, of course, in our backyard, but everyone across the country is doing this. And I just want to be the first one, if you haven't heard that, thank you for your service. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Tony. That's such an important message. And we just, you know, people who are on the front lines, and there's so many of you, I can't thank you enough. I want to thank Mike Martin again and NAPT for partnering with Transfinder to deliver this best practices. Again, I want to reiterate that the best practices are anchored. We want to make it very easy to find. So it's right on our transfinder.com homepage. Our series continues next Tuesday, so same bat time, same bat channel, April 7th, 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. If you have a story, again, as John reiterated very well in the beginning of this, we want your stories. Again, it doesn't matter what vendor you're using. We want these best practices. We want to get them out as quickly as we can. We put them on social media. We blast them everywhere we can. So please send them to mystory@transfinder.com. And frankly, there may be a story that comes out of this that we would like to include in our future best practices webinar. So that's really important. So please send it to us, and if it's something that we think could help others, we definitely will contact you. Again, I just want to thank everybody for participating, for being on with us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.